Polling from, having said all that, new polling from NBC News has Donald Trump ahead of President Biden by 2 points, 46 to 44%.
Excuse me 1 second. I've got a yawn. Hold on 1 second.
You're yawning? I know, because this is a pattern.
This is the end of the world, according to Democrats. Let's just say it. According to David Axelrod, who, by the way, said Biden was toast several times in 2020, this is the end of the world. According to Democrats in Washington, they need to take a deep breath.
Notable in the poll is Biden's drop in support from young voters after winning that group by more than 20 points in 2020. The latest poll shows voters actually prefer Trump to Biden now, 46 to 42%.
Yeah, and anybody who believes that will be the numbers on Election Day in 2024, I mean, seriously, not even close.
This comes as 70% of 18 to 29-year-olds say they disapprove of Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. Joining the conversation now, we have former U.S. Senator now on NBC News and MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill, president of the National Action Network and host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, Reverend Al Sharpton, and senior national political correspondent for The Washington Post, Ashley Parker. Jonathan Lemire, Donnie Deutsch, and Katty Kay are all still with us as well.
You know, Claire McCaskill, the discussion I'm hearing right now reminds me of the discussion I had with the senior Trump advisor in, what was it, well, actually, it was in 2020. In 2020. And this senior advisor was telling me and showed me all the numbers. Look, we've got the numbers. Donald Trump's going to get 22% of black voters. He's going to get 40% of Hispanic voters. Nevada is in the books. We've won it already. New Mexico, the numbers that we're driving right now, we're going to win New Mexico. I mean, so excuse me while I yawn, while Democrats left and right, who, let's just say it, Democrats who have kicked Joe Biden around for decades, who kicked him around when he was vice president of the United States, those same Democrats are now coming. Oh, and by the way, Democrats who said he was toast in 2020 after Iowa and New Hampshire, now they're saying he's toast again. Claire, why should I not be surprised that once again Joe Biden's being underestimated?
Well, it's the story of his career. It's what he has encountered pretty much every step of the way. And listen, there's one thing these polls are good for, and that is making sure that nobody in the Biden campaign takes any segment of our vote for granted.
Amen.
There is absolutely a need to do more and do better and cover the ground more thoroughly in black and brown voters' houses all over this country. They know what's at stake. And even the young voters, they know what's at stake. They know about Dobbs. They know about our military-style weapons that are slaughtering children sitting in classrooms. They know that they're banning books and trying to look down their nose at Americans who are gay and married in this country. And they're not going to stand for that. They know that the Republican Party thinks climate change is a hoax. So it's just a matter of making sure the campaign prioritizes the communication of those communities. And I think they've got that. And I think what's hard about it, though, Joe, I think we have to admit, we see Donald Trump as so completely unacceptable, a mentally deranged, narcissistic, dangerous, horrible man that only knows selfishness. The idea that anybody would be voting for him freaks all of us out. So the fact that there are this many that are saying it out loud to somebody, even though it is anonymously, is enough to just make your stomach hurt.
Well, you know, the thing is, reality is, people aren't focused on this campaign, on what Donald Trump is saying, on what Donald Trump is doing the way we are. The overwhelming majority of people. I know, and I know, Claire, let me go back to you for a second here. I'm sure because you ran as a senator, you had a lot more money, and so you could spread that money out. I would tell you that I would have people running around my campaign every 2 years. We're going to lose. We've got to start spending the money. We've got to go. It's August. It's like it's September. They're more interested in high school football. I just always say, I said, people don't really focus in a really intense way until they're about 2 or 3 weeks away from voting. Now, that is not to say that the Biden campaign doesn't need to start right now, like you said, hammering in these areas.
On contrasts.
But these polls, you've run, you've been on the ballot several times. I've been on the ballot 4 times. I just didn't look at polls a year out. They just didn't matter. I just worked. And I know you did the same thing.
Yeah, I would say one thing that everyone should do that is gnashing their teeth and getting a headache over these polls. One thing that the Biden campaign is going to need in every state in the union is a lot of volunteers. I think people underestimate the power of volunteers in a ground game. They hear ground game, they don't even know what that means. What that means is a skeleton staff that deploys hundreds and hundreds of volunteers to go to specific doors and make sure those voters are aware and informed and are going to vote. And then on election day, a huge plan to pull those voters. You make sure that you call them, make sure that you send people to knock on their doors. So if you care, call today and volunteer. Go online and volunteer. Call your state Democratic Party and volunteer. There's lots of ways that you can get busy right now helping these campaigns identify the voters that may need to be some extra love and care when the election gets closer to make sure they're paying attention.
So Rev and Donnie, I'm going to get you both in, but Rev, you first. I think we're all deeply skeptical of the polling there that suggests that Donald Trump is going to beat Joe Biden among young voters. That said, it is reflective of what a lot of Democrats have acknowledged is a bit of an enthusiasm problem for this president, particularly among young voters, voters of color, and young voters of color. And that seems to have only picked up in the last month or so because of the fighting in the Middle East. How do you see it, and what do you see could be the remedy?
I think that the fact that there is a lack of enthusiasm among young voters, particularly young black voters, the Biden campaign needs to take seriously, because you need to really build a ground game movement from the bottom up rather than just poo-poo it and be in denial. I was a big boxing fan. Joe and I talk about that all the time. The best fighters, the best champions fight when they feel they're behind. And a good trainer in your corner will tell you you're behind even if you're winning the round, because they want you not to relax. They should not relax. They ought to be out there saying, our Justice Department has prosecuted more federal civil rights cases of young blacks that were victims than any Justice Department. Tyrese Nichols, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd. I'm going today to do a eulogy in Mississippi, a young black man killed by an off-duty policeman who ran over him, never reported it, buried him. And his family didn't find out for 5 months, and we've exhumed the body. I'm doing a funeral today. The Justice Department is looking into that. They need to be saying that to young voters. They need to be saying that to black voters, saying you compare our record and ask what did the Justice Department do in cases like this with Donald Trump. And I'm only using one example. So the question is, you have to make voters feel that you're not on Biden's side, you're on your own side. And to be on your own side, you must go with who's been on your side.
And Donnie, let's be clear. It's not just that with these young voters might turn out to vote for Trump. More likely, they just stay home and don't vote at all. And that would be deeply problematic for this president as he runs for re-election. And we should note, I mean, it is, people hate it. Democrats hate talking about Joe Biden's age. Democrats can't stop talking about Joe Biden's age. And that is a part of this. He turns 81 today. So you weigh in on the enthusiasm issues he has among young voters. And frankly, some of them just look at him and say, he doesn't understand us. He doesn't connect with us. He's too old.
First of all, you got to walk into the age thing. He did it a couple of weeks ago. He had some fun with it, and he turned age into experience and turned age into fitness. The one thing that I would focus on if I was the Biden campaign is a very primal thing that's going to happen to voters when they walk in. Biden is safe, Trump is unsafe. He's unsafe if you're a woman because you're going to lose your right to choose, and we all know how powerful abortion is. You're unsafe. He's unsafe on the world stage. You get generals start talking about. Go to the primal thing that, yes, Joe Biden, one thing you can feel safe, America, is with Joe Biden. Donald Trump is dangerous to you. He's unsafe. He's unfit. And I would start to use the word fitness versus unfit. Fitness is a little bit of a metaphor. You can't say that he's young, but you could say that Biden is fit and the other guy is unfit, and draw that contrast, but make it about danger and safety. Biden will never be sexy. He's not going to be sexy at 81. Biden was not sexy at 62, but he is safe and he is fit, and the other side is not.
Ashley Parker, you have new reporting for The Post on how the Biden campaign is working to ease Democratic anxiety over re-election chances. There's some therapy being offered,
with Democrats.
What are they doing?
Well, they realize they have a problem in the sense of, at least as we've just discussed, perception. And their belief is a lot of what Joe was just echoing, which is polls a year out don't mean anything. Wait until a couple of weeks, a couple of months before Election Day. Wait until there's a clear contrast between, for instance, Joe Biden and likely Donald Trump. But in that intervening time, there's a couple of months where there are likely going to be more polls potentially like this, and where you are going to have, as we reported, Democrats, and not just voters, or rather not just donors, not just operatives, not just DC Democrats, but also voters who are very worried about Biden's age and if it means he's lost a step against a matchup with Donald Trump. So what they are doing is, on the one hand, they're sort of rolling their eyes and staying the course and not changing their internal strategy, but they are now taking steps to reassure this wide swath of Democrats that, yes, everything will be okay. And that ranges from, they've started doing more contrasts with Trump because, as Biden himself says, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. That's who they expect the alternative to be. And even privately, the Biden campaign flew out to Chicago, where Obama alumni, several thousand, had a big alumni weekend a couple weeks ago. And they did a private presentation that outlined the strategy, tried to reassure these Democrats that everything is okay, and also acknowledge pretty clearly this will be hard. And they end that presentation that they've made a number of times by saying, look, 45,000 votes, had they gone a different way across 3 or 4 key states, Donald Trump still would be president. So you're right, this will be hard. This is a fight, but here's our strategy, and we believe we've got this.
Ashley, how much disquiet is there in the Biden campaign about the effect that the Middle East policy is having on younger Democratic voters, and whether that, it's a year out, people's memories are famously short, particularly in this information age, and whether that will still be could still be a factor come next November?
Well, you look at the recent NBC poll, and they are aware, as Senator McCaskill was saying, that these various voting blocs, voters of color, and then especially young people who you're really seeing fissures when it comes to what's happening in the Israel-Gaza war. They're aware that this is real, but they also, again, they say this is a year out, and we're taking steps to show why President Biden is making the decisions he's making. And more importantly, they say, why would they believe President Biden is still, disquiet and concerns aside, better than former President Trump on just about, they say, all of these issues?
The Washington Post's Ashley Parker, thank you so much for your reporting this morning. Thanks for coming on. And still ahead,